We're going live.
All right.
Good evening and welcome to uh, the third session of conversations and the conversations into the mind of men. And it is on and about men. And today we have we have somebody from the corporate world, a very self-made man and a very big investor and marketeer entrepreneur. But before I introduce Mahesh Murthy, I want to just this session and conversation is talking cures is an initiative for mental health, and it is an initiative so that we can talk about mental health and remove and help in removing the stigma, the taboo associated with mental health. And in this conversation, uh, this session on men, the backdrop of this was the boys locker room controversy, and so we thought that why is this happening, and that is how I felt that we need to talk about men and we need to relook at men. And in this second session, and today is the third session, the conversation is on the corporate world of work, which we consider the playing field of men. The first two we've had on masculinity, manhood, and yesterday was psychoanalyzing the male psyche. And today we have the corporate world, and nobody could better represent the corporate world than you, and the work of world. So, Mahesh, welcome to the show, and we are very privileged to have you. A little bit about Mahesh. Mahesh is a marketer, entrepreneur, investor, and he has helped launch Amazon and a few hundred brands, and now a few satellites. Amazon, Yahoo, Pepsi, Nike, Microsoft, Unilever across US, China, Europe, India. He helped launch MTV India and then its rival Channel V. He founded the ad boutique Pinstorm. He's written and directed ads. He's an entrepreneur, and he says he failed in his first three ventures, did okay from fourth onwards. A couple of firms that use space technology in innovative ways, including one which became the first Indian private company in space. As an investor, he has three VC funds, and Google, Motorola, and European pension funds back his funds. He's a proud dad of three independent boys, and that's very important because we're going to be talking about that. And he says he's traveled in 90 plus countries, but only one planet so far. So, Mahesh, that's a goal you have. And welcome to the show. And I'll just throw the question at you first thing. Tell me how and what skills are needed to become all of this and reach here. A little journey, and it should be about you.
First of all, thank you very much, Chavi, for those kind words. I'm not sure I'm quite deserving of all that. Uh, I'm not a particularly qualified guy. People keep coming to me and asking me, what are your qualifications? And I say I'm a 12th class pass because actually that is what I am. And so I think, I'll do a quick, you know, 1 2 minute story because otherwise I'll be boring you and your audience out here. I think I'll talk about a few things and I think not just the facts but also a little of the drive behind it. I've always been curious and a bit of a rebel in terms of saying, well, if everybody says so, then maybe there's something wrong about it. Just starting with this entire thing saying, if everybody is zigging, then maybe zagging should be the right thing to do. And so anyway, childhood was pretty traditional, South Indian Tamilian Brahmin boy, very straightforwardly brought up. Academics was everything, nothing else mattered. Did well in my 10th, topped the state, did well in my 12th, came second in the state, merit listed into engineering college, which was much tougher those days. And after 1 year of engineering, kind of figured, and also the reason I got into engineering was, you're programmed that way, where you're programmed to believe that, especially among the families that we were when we were growing up, it was, I joke about it that if you're good at science but not math, you were told to be a doctor. If you're good at math but not science, you were told to be an engineer. And if you were not good uh, at math and not good at science, you were told to marry somebody rich. So essentially, those are the kind of options made available to. And I think I was okay in math and science, and so I was told, hey, engineer, doctor, pick one because those are the only careers one knew. And I picked engineering simply because I kind of figured that I didn't like the sight of blood, so that must mean I'm not a doctor, right? Once I got into engineering, I figured that I had zero interest. I had very little interest. I like the logic of it, but I wasn't interested in coding. I wasn't interested in any of the stuff. So I actually started bunking college to a point where I stopped going to college. At that point, my dad kind of read me the right act and said, okay, you know what, if you don't go to college, you can't stay at home. And that day I left home. I was 17 and I was literally on the street. I didn't have too much. And I've kind of been made my way from there. So that's really where I started without a degree and on the street. Uh, so I think the key thing that the changing point was not just was a realizing that dad was right, that if I had to live in his house, then I had to live follow his rules, and then if I wanted to follow my rules, then the consequences of that, it had to be in my house and not his house, which meant I had to go and get a house of my own, right? And I, because I wasn't really into this entire thing that no, let me wheedle and convert my dad and but do all this shit. That was not my entire thing. Wasn't really about finding a compromise. It was saying, okay, well, he's right. I should not, if I'm in his four walls, I can't uh, I can't defy him. So I left home, uh, found a place in a 50 rupee a room, night hotel. The next day, found a job. The only job going then for a non-graduate was a door-to-door salesman. I was a door-to-door salesman, a pretty terrible one, but I learned a lot. All my marketing was on the job. I tried two or three other jobs, and then finally landed up in advertising. I keep joking, all of us who are good for nothing else land up in advertising. Again, a lot advertising actually again fired that entire thing that when everybody zigs, you've got to zag, because the only way to get noticed is not to do what everybody else is doing. So I did pretty okay there. I did work in Hyderabad, Bombay, Delhi, and I keep trying different things. Then in Delhi, I got at the age of 23, I got a midlife crisis, and so I'm already in India's best agency, getting paid a lot of money. But then at the age of 23, I think I was earning five times as much as my dad's pension after 30 years of service. And he was like, what are you selling drugs? There's something wrong with you. Nobody can pay a college dropout that kind of money. Anyway, so I literally hopped on a plane, hacked my way into a job in Hong Kong. And when I'm in Hong Kong, again, tried to do the zigzag stuff. So I think the thing that's really helped was always, in some ways, being fearless. So saying, करने से क्या होगा? ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा क्या होगा? What's the worst that can happen? Nothing. Uh, so, for example, on one of my trips back from Hong Kong to India to come see my family, I watched MTV in India. I thought, hey, there's something wrong with that. I went back and literally picked up the phone, called direct inquiry, and said, "Can I speak to the guy in charge of MTV?" And they put me through to this American guy, and I said, "Look, I think your channel is really shit." And imagine some stranger calling up and doing that. To his credit, he said, "Why don't you come and talk to me?" So I went over the next day, met him, and I told him why I thought it was shit. And he surprised me by turning back to me and said, "Okay, you think it's shit? Good. You tell me how to fix it. I'm giving you an assignment, and I'll pay you for it." Which suddenly said, "Oh, okay, fine. It's not just complaining, but I should have a solution for this." So I actually went back with a set of solutions and films and stuff, and he bought into that, and that really happened. And I think uh, about a year after that, I kind of read a Wired magazine article about some digital agency in Silicon Valley, and I said, "Hey, that's interesting." So again, got an email, just wrote to the CEO, and he was, again, pretty interested in talking to me. And very soon, without having seen my face, he offered me a job, and that's how I moved to the US. College dropout on a H-1B visa. So, who says that can't happen? And I think that's really what happened. So one day, even in that agency, I was in the US. I read about this small company that had started in Seattle, and then I said, they're going to change the world. And I went to my board and said, I want that client. And they said, "Are you crazy? We don't work with startups and stuff like that." But I fought, and they said, okay, go, do it. But make sure you do your revenue numbers. So I went, talked to these guys, met them. It was a company that then had six people, called Amazon.com. Of course, now Jeff Bezos is the world's richest man. So literally fought my way in there, did some work, did some cool stuff. Uh, you know, I think that's been the kind of pattern throughout, which is why worry? What's the worst that can happen? Nothing, right? Go out and do it. As a part of this, I've not really had much of a career by any traditional norms. So, like I said, I've been door to door. I've been a door to door salesman. I've been a a news announcer. I've been a TV director. I've been an ad writer. I've been a website designer. I've been an investor in startups. Now my startups now go to space. I have companies that I advise on marketing, branding. I travel. So I don't even know what to describe my career as. I think it's just a full life, and it's a life I like. I'm sorry I talk too much. Back to you.
No, no, it's you please be, I mean, you make it sound so simple, but I don't think it is that simple because I mean, the it's not a very friendly. Is it a very friendly corporate world, or is it? And how friendly is it towards men, and how friendly is it towards women?
It's a good question. I think uh, women are were much more differentiated against and still are, and that's sad. And you feel that. I mean, I felt that through my entire life when I was working for other people. When I started working, I used to work in a banya company, an ad agency owned by the Birlas back then, and I was not a banya. I'm, with a name like Murthy. I'm a Burman, right? And so I kind of really never, I knew that that was not going anywhere for me. And then I came to Bombay, and I was from a hick town like Sikandrabad, and I was in this very cool, posh, sobo thing where I was the one guy who was not stylish, who was not with it, and I lived in Ghatkopar when everybody else was in sobo. And I kind of then from there I went to Hong Kong, where in those days the Chinese had this huge obsession with white skin, right? To the point where I remember I had a traffic manager in the office who was this white lady, Caucasian lady, and she would take all the work I wrote and get it checked by some white guy. All right, and because she thought that we brown skins wouldn't know English or stuff, right? So it really pissed me off. I think in the difference in each of these cases, I fought back. So in the case of that lady, I took one of her memos and then highlighted every single spelling mistake and grammatical mistake she made, photocopied it, put it all over the office, and said, "Look, you really should look at your English next time. Come talk to me before you put your memos out." She was really livid, but she stopped doing that shit after that. I think. Uh, and then when I joined the agency in the US, I was the only non-white guy. Forget black guys. I mean, there was nobody else, right? So I think that discrimination has happened, but I'm not even saying it's the equivalent of the discrimination that women face. Today it's much better, all right. But again, it's the decision makers who try to approach this from a point of view of, well, what would you know? Because my stereotype of you is you're an Indian, so hence you're a techie. When you know what, I'm an Indian, but I'm not a techie. My stereotype of you is you're a woman, so hence you're not serious about your career. Well, what would you know? That's a stereotype, and that's not true anymore. So I think there are, and it's not just men who have these stereotypes. Even women have these stereotypes about other women. At one point, I gave a dressing down to one of the HR people in one of my industry companies because she came and gave me this bullshit theory about why she prefers to hire men because women are not serious. And I said, what nonsense, right? You're a mother of two. Are you telling me you're not serious? She said, no, no, no. I am different. I'm talking about most women. So sometimes it's not just men who are the enemy of women; it's women who are the enemy of women. And I really think that this discrimination is there because of the stereotypes people hold in their heads, and it's just time to break every one of the stereotypes. And sometimes it's good if you are the one and you break it violently, right? It's perfectly fine. And maybe that's one thing that some people like not to do. Some women don't like to break that stereotype. Some women don't like to fight. Some men don't like to fight. But I think this is really the time when we have to fight the stereotypes of what a man can do and what a woman can do and the difference in them. And I see no difference whatsoever.
So, which is one stereotype you would think that it should be just thrown in the dustbin, chucked out?
I mean, I think the entire stereotype, I mean, one stereotype, for example, and it's not a gender related stereotype. So I'll tell you again the story of, I'm famous for my run ins with HR people in the companies that I have an investment. So I had
Okay.
this lady HR, 15 years experience. She came to me and she joined one of my companies and said, Mahesh, I have this really nice plan to attract great talent. And we should do differential pays for MBAs and non MBAs. I said, that's a great idea. I completely agree with you. And what's the difference you think? She said 20%. I said, I completely agree with you. I said, so from now on, let's basically have a policy where all the MBAs get 20% less than the non MBAs. She said, ooh, no, I mean 20% more. I said, no, 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 no. If you look at our experience, I mean, the MBAs who come in, they come with some set thinking, which is all wrong. It takes us, 9 months to clear their heads of the crap that they learned, and another 9 months from them to go from -1 back to zero, so they can start again after that. So they become useful after 18 months, and let's just assume that they're there for 4 or 5 years. So we are wasting 20% of the salary. So I completely agree with you. All MBA should start at 20% less than people who are not in MBA. So she didn't know if I was serious or not. And she quietly said, okay, Mahesh, I think they should start at the same salary. I think these are the kinds of stereotypes that you fight. So, for example, in, in one of the companies, we have there's this common thing, right? Guys get paid more than girls, right? And I completely believe that's crap. There's no reason for that to happen. For example, in one of the companies, a few of the companies that I'm an investor in, we have literally a gender blind uh, salary system. So what essentially happens is that you evaluate yourself, then your supervisor marks off on that, and you both agree to the score. You put the score into an Excel spreadsheet, and out comes the salary. That's it. So there's no judge on whether you're married, single, mother, not single, working at home, working at office. None of that. All right. So there's no such discrimination. So even now, for example, after this entire COVID stuff, I was just talking again with HR on one of the companies, and there's some 10 open positions, and I think everybody's firing. This company's hiring, and I went back and said, so why do you have a bias saying you have positions in these offices? These offices haven't been open for 3 months, and you don't care to open them. So again, our HR was shocked. So we had to kind of go and say, you know what? I think those jobs would go out there saying anywhere on earth can apply, but these are the salary scales that apply. So it doesn't matter. You can be in China, you can be in Nepal, you can be in the US. If you do the work, that's the money. Go ahead and do it. So I think there's a huge amount of corporate stereotypes that need to be broken, and often, their leadership needs to do it, but again, the people themselves need to do it. I mean, if you come in there and believe that I can sweet talk somebody, or if I'm better looking, I'll do better as a client servicing person, that's nonsense. I mean, I don't really buy into that. I mean, there are people who do, and that's okay. That doesn't work for me, and I particularly don't believe that if you look better, you should get paid more. That makes no difference to me.
That's okay. So then we take it forward. Then is there a glass ceiling?
Uh, in some places there is, but in that's becoming less and less, right? In some places, for example, take a Lada G company. A Lada G company is company owned by Lada, right? So like Hero, or like you know Start TV before Disney bought it, or like Times of India, right? So you know that Mr. Jain started it, and then the next Jain will run it, and the next Jain will run it, and like Reliance is a Ladaji company, and Mr. Ambani ran it, and Mr. Ambani will run it, and then maybe Miss Ambani will run it, and then Mr. Ambani will run it, and so on and so forth. So the glass ceiling is that you will never become the Seth. You will always be the knocker, right?
Mm.
So there are such companies, and it's okay. More power to them. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would assume that those companies should at least be gender unbiased even in the glass ceiling, so that Miss Ambani has an equal chance of running a company as a brother, right? So I don't know what, and that should be based on competence and not on gender. But that glass ceiling apart, I don't particularly believe there should be glass ceilings. I mean, I personally don't, even in the companies I invest in, I mean, there's no hereditary role for any of my kids in any of my companies. I remember once a while ago, my eldest son went out on a walk with me and said, Dad, how are our companies doing? And I said, which companies are you referring to? And he named blah, 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 blah. And he said, you said our companies. He said, yeah, they're our companies, right? I said, no, they're my companies. They're not your companies, right? So he was quiet. And I had to explain to him, look, what's mine is mine. Nothing is coming to you. Get used to it. What you have to do yourself. This is not yours. So he was in a huge state of shock, because maybe he was under the belief that Amir Baap ka beta ye sab tera maal hone wala hai. And he's doing his own thing, and what he does, he's fine. He's got his own life to live, right? So I'm not here to give career paths to my children, and but there are some people who want to. That's okay. I think that's a matter of personal choice.
Okay. So if you have to recruit somebody, what would be the qualities you would look for in the person? And if you look for different qualities, say in a woman or a man, then I don't think you
Okay.
look for that. Yeah, but what are the
No,
qualities?
no, not at all. So a lot of the recruiting qualities, I mean, the qualities I tend to look for are very different from the qualities many others tend to look for. So sure, there's the technical specifications of whatever the job is. Let's say if you're a technology head, then you should know what you're talking about. So I mean, there's a knowledge and all of that stuff, right? But a lot of the recruiting I do or I look after or I kind of finally approve is for the companies that I invest in. So these are startups who tend to grow, you know, grow big by through innovative thinking. And I think one thing that a startup tends to cope with better than large companies do is dealing with uncertainty and chaos, right? So
Yeah.
if you've seen, especially with all this COVID happening, the way that large companies have dealt with are like, oh my God, what do we do? We have the huge ship is going to take so much time to turn it around. But the startup like, chalo kal kuch aur shuru karte, right? So uh, the quality that I look for is actually the opposite of a quality that is taught. I mean, much of our schooling and is all about padhai karo, exam par karo, get score high in engineer entrance test, blah blah blah, all that stuff, right? And what that teaches you to do, say, एक predictable question है, देखो सीबीएसई में ऐसा क्वेश्चन पेपर लगता है, जेई में ऐसा क्वेश्चन पेपर लगता है, तुम रटो मगो पार हो जाओ, right? So essentially, you're brought up to believe that life is predictable, and if you understand and work towards the predictions, you'll be great in life. But the interesting thing is, all these people who are IIT toppers, I mean, every year you would see Brilliant and Agarwal saying, ये बंदे मेरे IIT, all IIT toppers are people I know. If you look at them 10 years later, there's zeros in a life. 20 years later, there's zeros in life. Can you name one IIT topper anywhere who's any big position there? Nothing. All right. It's usually the backbenchers or the third benchers or whatever, the second benchers who do something out there. Right. So, and the reason for that is the world is not predictable. And if you're brought up to believe that you have to excel in the predictable world, then you learn brain down, blinkered hard work. What I look for is long story short, is this thing that I call comfort with uncertainty, comfort with chaos, comfort with the lack of clarity. So the difference is, for example, let's say there are two people, and I say, hey, you know what? Get me some tracing paper. That's it, right? One person, and both of them don't know what tracing paper is, right? So one person may react saying, okay, Mahesh, what is tracing paper? And I have to explain, okay, where do I get it? Or, it's in that shop, which is around that side of the road. And, I have to go there and, okay, who's giving money for it? Okay, go to accounts and take 200 rupees, blah, blah, blah. And how many sheets of paper do you need, blah, 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 right? And this is the kind of person who requires lots of direction because they only know how to follow directions because they want everything broken down in steps. And the other person, let's say I said, go get some tracing paper. And that person walks out and says, okay, I've got to figure out what tracing paper is. Googles it, asks three people, then says, okay, fine. Dukan idhar hai. Then say, how much will Mahesh need? Maybe he needs 10 sheets. So, how much is it? Let me find out price. Picks up the phone and says, okay, 20 rupees, mere jeb mein, main baad mein reimburse kar dunga. And he goes and buys the paper. So you know what I'm getting at. I prefer
Yeah.
looking. I don't have in the startup the time to tell everybody do every step. Right. I'd much rather say. Uh, I'd much rather have people who are comfortable with uncertainty, comfortable with volatility, and who can just go hack it and do it themselves rather than getting directions step by step. So that's the state. That's the kind of you can call it jugadu, right? Character that I look for. Now, as it so happens, I haven't really particularly seen a huge amount of difference in gender difference in Jugadu men versus Jugadu women. But strangely, when interview times come, and when I'm questioning somebody, I don't say, tell me some Jugadu thing you did. I keep probing, and there's a way of probing to find these things. The men tend to give me the more adventurous answers, and the women tend to hide the more adventurous answers. All right. So I don't know why that is. So they tend to believe that people want a sense of stability and competence put in front of them. While actually, the sign of competence for me is your ability to deal with instability, right? That's the one difference that I see often. So I have to take a greater effort to be able to urge it out. So we have a set of questions a set of way we do interviews, which literally puts you off because you go into an interview thinking that they will ask these following questions, right? So that actually
Yeah.
doesn't happen, right? So we do something different specifically to be unpredictable because you can prepare for anything, but you can't prepare for an interview where you don't know the kind of questions that are going to be asked. I hope that answers your question,
Oh,
Shweta.
it does. It does. It makes many, many things very clear. So I want to ask you this: who makes a better leader, M- men or women, or what is the quality that you would?
It's hard to kind of say, I've had, sorry, uh,
Yeah.
it's a hard, I've had several of my companies run by women. I mean, today, one of my agencies, Pinstorm, is almost entirely run by women. The COOs are women. Head of client service is a woman, head of admin is a woman, head of HR is a woman, accounts, and I think everything is run by a woman out there. I think one person, the techie is a guy, and it's not like we, and it's also that not that we did affirmative action hiring. We didn't sit back and say, hey, we're going to hire a woman for this role, etc. Uh, I think the difference that we see is often that, uh, and I'm not trying to be, excuse me if I'm not trying to be racist or genderist or whatever the word is or sexist. Women tend
No,
to
no,
be a
no.
little more stable. They tend to be calm. They tend to react in some ways less emotionally. Uh, but again, this is generalizing. I mean, some tend to do more. I mean, while many of the men probably are, have ego. That if you tell a guy that, look, this just isn't good enough, right? He's going to be very hurt by women. Say, okay, fine, maybe there's something to it. I'll work harder. I mean, so maybe I'm generalizing, but I often find that women leaders bond better, offer better emotional guidance to their teams, offer better feedback to the teams, are less assholes than men as managers. Uh, but again, there's enough examples of both. So, for example, I've had women who come to me and say, please don't ever give me a woman manager, and maybe that's because men treat them fairer and women don't. Because I don't know. I mean, there's some political and other reasons for that, but there are good and bad of both. But very, very generally speaking, I think there's a little bit of an edge in if I want stability, I want consistency, and I don't want emotional volatility. You probably get a little more from a woman leader than from a male leader. Again, not trying to be sexist against women or against men. Yeah,
No, no. This show is all about men, and we are. It's going to be. It's non-judgmental, and we need to understand that. So, just tell me. Okay, it's a personal question again. What does being a man mean to you? And have you ever felt that a woman's job or life is much easier? I mean, seeing
no,
you.
no, not really. I mean, my mom brought. I love her. She's 83. She's worked very hard to educate all three of us, put us through stuff. She works even very hard today. It's not easy. I think men have it easy because, especially in these times of COVID, I'm really fortunate that I'm locked down at home and I have a couple of mates out here. But the stories I'm hearing are that men have a problem with the work, with doing the work at home, and women are like, what the hell do you think we were doing so far? So I think men have it easier than women. I don't think, particularly women have it easy at home. I actually don't think so. I think we are the pampered lot. We are spoiled, and many of us are brought up by our mothers to believe that our job is not to do the housework; it's a woman's job to do the housework. We're brought up with, shit stereotypes of that. I don't believe in any of that. So I've tried to bring up my kids quite the opposite way. So my eldest son lives alone. He lives in the US. He cooks his own food. It's perfectly fine. My second boy is 9. He's learning to be a cook. He cooks for himself. He cooks for us. It's perfectly fine. He does the dishes. I do the dishes. So I don't particularly think there are any gender specific rules other than, of course, the act of giving birth is something only a woman can do. And the pain she goes through is a lot more than I think what any guy ever experiences. But that apart, I don't particularly believe. I think a lot of this really comes down again. We started, Chavi, by talking about stereotyping. Right? So
Right.
if your mom has brought you up to believe that this is the way you are, then everybody's mom and dad is probably to blame for that. I'll give you one really interesting example. I used to write a column in Business World or Business Today, and I should write a business column. It was pretty well known. Uh, and even today, I write in LinkedIn and other places if you guys want to follow me. And this was interesting. So I was once in Dubai airport and passing through, I think, coming to India from the US. There was somebody who was going from Africa to China or something. And we were in the lounge for a couple of hours, nothing to do with chatting. So this was a single Chinese lady, about 28, 29 years old, nothing to do. So we got chatting. So I said, okay, so what do you do? And she said, oh, I'm a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. Oh, I said, cool. All right. So I said, and we started talking about kids. She said, yeah, I have 2 kids, and they're 3 and 5 and stuff. I said, okay, that's good. I said, so what's your territory? She said, oh, yeah, my territory is Kenya, Tanzania, and something else. I don't know, Nigeria. Kenya and Tanzania are my territory. I said, wow. So your family lives in Africa? said, no, 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 no. My family lives in China, in Xi'an. What about you? She says, I'm in Africa. So she said, I'm there 6 weeks a month. 6 weeks every 2 months. I do my work and stuff like that. And then I go back. Company sends me back once, every 2 months for a couple of weeks. And I go hang out with my kids then. I said, what about your kids? She says, my husband looks after them. I said, wow, amazing, right? That's incredible. And right after that, I came and gave a lecture in Sophia, one of these colleges, very posh colleges in South Bombay. And I was telling the story, and there was very, very bright young ladies who were in the audience, and they came out. No, I was not telling the story. I was talking about being an entrepreneur and all that. And they're asking the brightest questions. So I came out at the end, and I was just in front of the auditorium chatting with them. And I said, "So what are you girls going to do? And you guys have great ideas." And then they laughed. And one of the girls said, the fourth girl said, so they all have, they go to, they all have rich boyfriends. They simply, they're all set for life. All right. And they laughed and said, yeah, we're just going to get married and do nothing, stay at home. Right? So I think the big difference between China and India is that they expect their women to work and we don't. All right. Or at least 10 years ago, we didn't, right? We perhaps expect them to grow up and we discourage them from studying, we discourage them from working, we tell them, what is ये करने का मतलब ही क्या है? You anyway have to bring up babies and sit at home. पढ़ाई करने की क्या जरूरत है? Right? And both our fathers and mothers are both complicit in this evil of bringing people up, bringing women up to believe that they should not have a career. All right. And so it was even so. Here's the difference. In fact, you can almost entirely attribute the difference in the growth of China and the growth of India almost entirely statistically to the fact that we don't allow our women to work. So actually, here is half the country that's trying to grow India, and there's 100% of the same 1.4 billion that's growing that. So guess who's going to grow faster? Okay. So I think it's really down to the stereotypes and the way you bring them up. Now, the really interesting thing that I wanted to add to that is, so I came back and wrote a column about this. All right, saying exactly this: that how the hell are we going to grow if this is how we bring up our girls? The amazing thing is 95% of the letters to the editor that came back were from women saying, how dare you ask me to work? How dare you? I want to sit at home. I will sit at home. So it was a very strange thing. So and there were mothers saying, how dare you tell me that I should ask my daughter to work? You go do yourself. We have a different thing. Men and women are different. They'll never be the same. So it was this strange thing saying, oh my God, what have I gotten into? And so that was a huge kind of fire that came at the end of it. Maybe you can tell me more why, Chavi.
Yeah, it is. So, I mean, this is interesting, and I think it gives a insight into so many things that's happening. But then, tell me something, Mahesh. What women need to know about men? That what does a man expect in a job? And similarly, because most of them we carry forward our own attitude at home, and we there. So, what do you think men look for, and what expect from women in the job, and vice versa?
I think, Chavi, there are all kinds of men and there are all kinds of women, right? But if I
Yeah,
talk about a professional manager, right, what do I
yeah,
expect from me? I expect, you to do your job and communicate with me logically and bond with me, right? I don't expect you to try to manipulate me. I don't expect you to do मैं भीगी बिल्ली I'm so नहीं हुआ so तुम माफ कर दो so that game playing stuff, that manipulation, that crap, right? That sucking up to boss, that I don't expect that. Right? I know some do that and many don't, right?
yeah,
And I'm sure even the many who do that know they're doing it and hate the fact they're doing it, but they're doing it because they believe it's expected by the man. Please don't. I mean, be professional, right? I mean, you're there not because you have you know uh, two different chromosomes and we have different chromosomes. You're there to do the job. Your chromosomes should not matter in your job, right? And so the ideal thing is that the best thing you can do is to find a boss who respects you for the person you are, as opposed to whether you're a man or a woman. Like I said, there are many women who have come to me very explicitly and said, please do not give me a woman boss. Please don't, because they're bitches or whatever, right? And maybe it could be, again, I'm hypothesizing, it could be because their bosses are super strict with women or easier with men, and these are women bosses. Or it could be that they're the victim, the junior person is probably more comfortable manipulating their way with the mind, saying, usko to main I'll fix him and stuff like that because I have him wrapped around my fingers, right? So guys will typically not say I have my boss wrapped around my finger, right? You see that. So I think the thing that holds this entire discourse back is when you behave in a way that's anything but professional and friendly. By professional, I don't mean you have to be cold. I mean it should not matter the way you're built. Every woman on earth is built the same way. Every man on earth is built the same way. What's the big deal? All right, don't make a big deal out of it. So if you don't play the traditional gender power game, you should be all right. All right. And if you find a boss or somebody else who's playing these gender power games, then get out and find somebody else, start something else yourself, right? It's an open world. There's lots of jobs, especially now. You can work anywhere remotely in the world. And when you're working remotely, how does it matter? Right? I mean, you have a job at the other end of the screen. Maybe I'm talking to Chavi and she's my boss, and I talk to her for 20 minutes a day. It should not matter if I'm a man or a woman, right? I think what happens is in interpersonal stuff when you try to believe manipulation is a way of doing things, and there are men who do that, there are women who do that, right? That's when it starts messing things up.
Right,
Don't
right.
manipulate.
Yeah. So I would just join her to that. Like there is the casting couch film industry. Is there an equivalent in advertising world? How much is it?
Not that not that I know of, right? I think there may be some. So in the advertising world, I mean, for most of us behind the camera, it's a job. It doesn't matter, right? I mean, what matters at the end of the day is how good your work is, not how beautiful you are. But I do understand that it's something that happens in front of the camera. I worked with MTV, I used to run Channel V, and I've heard enough of this where it's strange. The directors actually don't care. It's really the talent guys and the casting guys who say, yeah, be friendly, up your compromise kar lo and stuff like that, and that's a shame, right? Uh, and but there are still women who have been able to win without having to do that shit that others do. I think the more we have women casting agents and the more we have professional casting that happens, or even remote casting like this that happens, what can you tell me? To do online that. So I think we will have less of that times goes by. And everybody thinks that advertising and marketing is a glamorous thing where everybody's. It's not. I mean, it's really, really hard work. The stuff that happens in front of the camera, often we don't even go to shoots because we're just too busy doing the work. I mean, the last film I think I oversaw, I was sitting here, the crew was in Nepal, and I was just there, guiding them on WhatsApp. So that I don't have time. Most people don't have time to do that today. Our lives are are pretty busy. So there's a casting couch. It exists in some parts of the business. It should not. All right. It exists in any part of the business, for example, where there's no way to differentiate talent. If all you're doing is you want to come on as an extra in the scene, well, then right. Or if you're saying there are 10 dancers and you're just another dancer, you're just as good, then you might say, hey, I'll sleep my way to the top. And this, by the way, in Hollywood, it's not just women who complain, it's even men who complain because there are many men who get take advantage of by the whatever the male equivalent of the casting couch by other men or by women, right? So it's much less than the evil that women go through, but it's also there both ways. But if you're able to differentiate yourself based on your talent, then you should not ever have to worry about there being a casting couch. And certainly in finance and investing, there's nothing. Nobody's going to put money into you just because you pose it up to somebody. You can't lose your money, right? So you will always try to make investments that go well. So you want to invest in a great team as opposed to invest in somebody who's pretty or somebody who's sweet to you and kind to you. So you're not going to make any such silly gender-based decisions in any finance or business thing. At least I don't see how anybody should do that.
So it is said that the biggest boys' locker room is actually the corporate. And so I want to ask you your comment on this and on the sexism and because even in the corporate, there's a lot of
Well,
sexism is very
it's
much
it's
there.
yeah, it's there. It's there. There's a boys' locker room and there's a girls' locker room, and neither should exist. The reason for this, again, I believe, is the way you're brought up. If you're brought up to believe like many of us were, I mean, I, for example, was not allowed to talk to a girl till I was in ninth grade, saying nothing, right? No girls, and it's evil. Just like many women are brought up with, don't talk to a boy, and many women parents want to send their daughters to convent schools or a girls only school or girls only college. It's evil. I mean, what's the sense of a girls only school? What's the sense of a boys only school other than reinforcing sexism? All right. So the minute you grew up with all this shit, right? The minute you bring up your kid to believe there's nothing special about a man, there's nothing special about a woman, there's nothing special about your reproductive organs. Every man on earth is built the same way. Every woman on earth is built the same way. There's no big difference. All this crap goes away. All of this boys' locker room crap happens when women are kept as an object of mystique or whatever, and hence they believe it's only an object. You get rich and any girl will sleep with you and all that shit, right? And because you're not made to interact from early enough, because your parents have brought you up in a particular way to believe that oh, you're special, but a girl is just an object, or vice versa. Girls believe, and equal number. Believe me, I mean, I spend a lot of time in the entertainment industry. There's equal number of women out there. Not equal. There's at least certain number of women out there who talk about male models and other guys they've had, and oh, I like that guy. He's good in bed, and he's not so good, and they rate the men, right? Just like the men rate the women, but the boys' locker room is a much more prevalent uh, thing than the girls' locker room. Uh, it's evil simply from the point, and the reason that is there is because you've never really learned to treat uh, yourself as an equal. You've been kept away because your parents sent you to a girls' school or a boys' school, and then you objectified and you were mysterious. I mean, you had this mystique about women because oh my god, your parents never allowed you to do this, and you secretly saw your first pornographic movie at 14 and blah blah blah, and you thought it was something. The more you create this crap, this distinction when you're growing up, where you're bringing your kids up, the more future participants in boys' locker rooms and girls' locker rooms you're going to create. The less you create any idea of objectifying the other gender, it's not going to happen. So it's again, I think it really comes down to parenting skills and how you parent your kids.
So, from this itself, I want to ask you, you would have, the positions you've been in and everything. There would be women who would have, wanted to, uh, you know, what is the word I would use? There would be women who would want to talk to you, or probably you would have a fan following. Something. How did you deal with all of that?
So, this only happened once, a couple of times. I think the last time it happened when I used to run a TV channel called Channel B. Uh,
Yeah.
so I was hired from the US. I was brought in to take over from, I think, a British guy who was running it. And it was when I came in, I found this very strange configuration that the CEO of the channel would have all the VJs reporting to him, which made no sense to me. I mean, the job of when I was brought in as a CEO, and suddenly I figured all these VJs reported to me, and I said, why are the VJs reporting to me? All right. Uh, because finally, the VJs, like, they're performers and they play a role and they have to do shows. And the showrunner, I mean, they should be part of the production team. They should report to the showrunner, and the showrunner reports to the production head. The production head reports to me. There should be three levels below. I mean, definitely. I mean, I don't mean any hierarchy. And
Hmm.
then I kind of figured that it was a strange kind of time where it was rumored again that in that earlier world, whoever kind of was friendliest with the CEO would get the most shows and the best shows, etc. And uh, so when I came in, I suddenly thought that everybody was very friendly, and then I figured that it was not friendly. It was they were really they kind of thought that that was the way the channel worked. That you had to be good to the CEO and sorry about that, and that's how you got your opportunities. So I think one of the first things I did at that point was immediately hire uh, somebody to be their manager, and this turned out to be a woman, no nonsense type, Sandy, and she's excellent at the job. And then she reported into the production head, who kind of, and so essentially by simply changing the reporting structure, this all changed. And then when people would come in later on, hey, I don't like this 9:30 p.m. slot, and so you can also be, you can either be curt and bushy and say fuck off, or you can say no, babes, blah blah blah, go talk to that person, right? So it allowed you to kind of distance it without being rude by pushing it back on somebody else. But eventually, people got the idea that this was no longer the place it used to be. That it was kind of like a strange fiefdom where you had, you know, reported was similarly. For example, when you go on a set uh, to direct a film or a direct an ad film, some everybody believes that the actors have to kowtow to the director. I don't believe. Yeah, you're talent. You're an actor. That's okay. I'm far more concerned about the production cost. So I think this entire thing that uh, women are expected to play a gender-based role by some guys in that position before you has probably spoiled it for them. I don't think women would necessarily willingly go and start doing that nonsense, right? But if somebody before has dealt in that way and you believe that's the only way to get ahead, well, I wouldn't blame you if that's nonsense you did. But there is, but it doesn't need to be. I mean, you must understand if you're talent on TV channel or on a film. I hate to break it to you. I mean, that is just a small part of the business. I mean, the bigger part of the business is somewhere else. So, expecting the head of a channel or the director to take a decision on which these are not things you do, right? I mean, it's a casting agent's job to do all that, uh, and it's a professional thing. The more you behave professionally, the better it is for everybody. And the evil is done by the people who came before us, and
Mm.
or maybe who are already out there. And I think it's our job to just wipe it clean by saying nothing doing. We won't tolerate any of that.
Right. Right. There are a lot of questions coming in, Mahesh, on
Sure.
this. I think, can you see them?
Oh yeah, loads of
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, loads of questions. And they all want to know stereotypes, media stereotypes. What did you do to break them? I would qualify it. Or there is this whole thing of workplace social setting and women play along, and it is a man's world. Or how would you answer that? And
Okay.
also this ma'am and sir thing, that you just brought up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the strange thing, I mean, I'm Mahesh, right? It's not. I mean, I don't expect to be called sir, and when somebody calls me sir, I believe that I have to call you back, ma'am, right? Because that's how I was brought up. I mean, either I'm Mahesh and you're Chavi, or I'm Mr. Murthy and you're Mrs. Sharma, or I'm sir and you're ma'am, or I'm uncle and you're auntie, whatever, right? So this entire thing that no, that I am sir, but you call me sir, but I have to call you Chavi. That doesn't make sense. That's like an implied hierarchy.
Yeah.
For example, we were having this discussion with your assistant before this, where she
Yeah.
called me, "Sir, are you okay?" And I said, "Look, I'm not Sir, I'm Mahesh." She said, no, I'm too young to call you Mahesh. What the hell do you mean you're too young? As long as you're 18, everybody above the age of 18 is the same, right? I don't
Yes.
expect you to call an 85-year-old guy sir because he's 85. It means nothing. I mean, somebody has to deserve it, right? And if because everybody from the age of 18 to the age of 118 is exactly the same. There's nothing, nobody more senior or less senior. But we try to build this strange thing, calling it Indian culture, that you have to respect the old because they're old. I don't believe you have to respect anybody because they're old. It means nothing. I mean, there are old idiots and they're young, brilliant people, and nobody automatically deserves respect just because they're old, right? Show me that you're
Right.
deserving respect. And so that's the first thing. So I really, and the only way often to do it is when somebody calls me sir, I will call them auntie, right? Right? So they get very pissed off. Why are you calling me auntie? I'm not an auntie. I said, I'm not a sir. Okay, Mahesh. Yes. I think it takes some time to break down that, because that's the stereotype you're brought up with, right? So poor Priyanka,
Yeah.
who's behind all this, is really angry right now because we're talking about her, right? And hopefully she doesn't call, me sir again or you ma'am again. I think that's one part of it. The second thing you talked about was media stereotyping. It's very strange. Uh, I was talking with I own an agency, and one of the agency's clients wanted to do a set of celebrity films and stuff like that, right?
Right.
And we wanted to talk. So we were talking about the actors that they wanted to use and so on and so forth. So and the other people. So they were very cool with using one actor who was 56 years old, all right, and they were not cool with using an actor who was 48 years old, all right, and this was a woman who was a marketing head, right? And the logic was that, okay, the 56-year-old actor is a guy, he's okay, but the 48-year-old is a woman, she's too old yet. And this is a woman telling me this, all right? So I said, so can you explain to me why is it that it's okay to have an older man, but you only want a young nubile chick? Can you, explain, and because we did that in a sweet way, actually they turned around and said, okay, no, we buy what you're saying. We have a responsibility as a corporate to go out and do this stuff, right? And that's a responsibility that every agency has to be able to explain to their clients. In many ways, for example, our top marketing companies, Unilever, is hugely guilty for sitting and saying, hey, if you're dark, then you will not get a husband. So hence he's fair and lovely. Or Kent or whatever, saying I'm Hema Malini and I'm the woman at home. Why should the woman be the cook at home? All right. Why should a fair woman only be the one who gets a husband? Right. And if you're out there perpetuating the stereotypes, it's your job. And if you're allowing it to happen as an agency, as an advisor to a client, you're complicit. All right, you're complicit in this. And there's no particular reason for this to happen. There's nothing out there. I mean, you can sit back and say people won't accept nonsense. People won't accept. All right, people are willing to accept anything. People are willing to accept gay men and gay couples of either gender. People are willing to accept anything. It's your bigotedness, your bigotry that's stopping yourself from doing that. And actually, especially in advertising, think about it. If you want an ad to get noticed and it's for a kitchen product, would it be that much more noticeable if it had two men in the kitchen working on it as a couple, as opposed to a
Yeah.
one woman?
Yeah.
Audio two, right? So actually, it's something positive, right? And I don't mean this in any way, mocking to the LGBTIQ community, right? So it's your job as an advisor to brands to stop giving me this, to stop listening to what the client said. So a few days ago, there was this ridiculous Kent RO ad that said, "Your bai is making the roti. Her hands may have COVID. So you please keep it away from her. You buy this machine so that you're what nonsense. I mean, that's a racist client. It's a racist agency. It's a racist creative director. That's ridiculous, all the way from top to bottom. And somebody has to spank them and call them out. And thankfully, they were spanked and they were called out, and hopefully they'll think again. But that's the same agency that still has a Hema Malini saying, "I'm at home and my children do this." Why is it, right? Why is it only a mother's job to look after children? Why is it not a father's job? Why is it that only a housewife has to tell you how good a washing machine is or how good a kitchen utensil is? That's nonsense, right? I think the more you break these stereotypes, and it's up to us to break it, the better it's going to be. Really.
So I just want to ask you another question. I think, Mahesh, the questions are not ending, but who is then smarter? Because when you go into the corporate, if you're working, if you're an adult, whether it's a woman or a man, both know their jobs, right? And
Yeah.
who is smarter and who gets the better of the two?
I don't.
Let me reword it again.
Okay.
In
All
not
right.
the, let me say who's smarter, who's the smarter worker. The word is the smarter worker.
So I don't even know what you mean, right? I mean, for me, I am unable to distinguish between a smart woman worker and a smart man worker. It doesn't matter to me, right? I think from the work point of view, there's no difference. But from a life point of view, probably the woman is more talented if she's able to exude the same smartness as a man at work, because she's probably balancing a lot more things at the back end, and she's probably multidimensional. Well, the guy is probably unidimensional. The smartness he's showing is more likely to be the only thing he shows, right? He only has to be smart at the office, while that woman probably has a burden to be not just smart at the office, but smart at her home, smart at her family, smart at her, so it's probably uh, from that point of view. So at the office, they're all the same. I mean, we're all kaleidoscopes. We show different faces in different places, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
if you only judge it from the point of view of the faces you show at the office, I can't make out a difference. You say, but what's behind that face, right? I probably think the women are more accomplished because they have to wear more masks than men do. We have it easy, right? I can, I feel like I'm who I am. I'm not wearing different masks out here. I'm okay with wearing a t-shirt. I mean, that's what I go to office in. But there you are, Chavi. I mean, you have a bindi, you're made up, you're wearing a sari. I don't know if that's how you are every day or not, but you know that there are masks that you have to wear in different places. There are people watching you, so you have this mask to wear. Maybe you are a family, and the way you are with your kids, you have a different mask to wear. I think for us, it's easier. We're not expected to wear masks. We are not expected to have these personas. So, from that point of view, I think women probably are far more talented at balancing and juggling the masks they have to wear, and still retaining an internal composure than us men. We have it easy, because it's not expected of us. कि भैया तुम है तो मरा था तो बोल दो, but we are expected to talk, we are expected to rebel. A girl is not. That's bullshit. I don't know why, right? So it's harder for a woman to do that, but that shouldn't stop you.
Right.
We hopefully will come to a time when it is not hard for both of you, for both men and women. But at least for the women who come so far today, you had to play a far more complex role than I ever did, right? Even though I fought, I mean, I was on the street literally and kicked out of the house, blah, blah, blah. But that's still in some ways easier than being married against my will and then still coming out. That's much harder to do. And if you've done that, more power to you.
So just another qualifier to this. Then who do you think can tolerate stress more, the woman or the man?
It's again very hard to say. this, right? Uh, what makes you tolerate stress? What makes you tolerate stress is understanding what happens if something doesn't happen, right? ये नहीं हुआ तो क्या हुआ? So I think this is more a philosophical question than a gender question. So, for example, if you're out there saying, I'll say, okay, let's say there's a man and there's a woman. Again, I'm sorry, I'm being stereotypical out here, and they're both let go for whatever reasons, and due to reasons that are none of their concern, right? But maybe the company had a bad year, right? I would imagine that largely the man would probably be stressed more and the woman will be able to control her stress more because she probably says, hey, it's okay, my life is not over. Because she's got many metrics and many measures that she measures herself up in her head again, saying, I'm good. I'm okay as a mom. I'm okay as a daughter. I'm okay as this. I'm okay as that. Okay, I'm not doing this, but I'm going to come back up. While the guy says, the only thing I'm valued for is my work, and that's gone. Oh my God, my self worth is gone. Right. So I think probably on that balance, because guys think, and not correctly so, that they might have more to lose. Hence, they would probably not be able to take stress, maybe as well. And this is mental stress. Physical stress is something else. I mean, who would be able to hang off a cliff for longer?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe that depends on your muscle strength. All right, and that's an unfair question because that's not really.
Yeah.
I assume you're talking mental strength and
Yes.
mental stress, not physical stress. But that's again broadly out. My sense is that for men it's a very linear thing, one dimensional thing. I have one face and this is it, and if there's nothing outside this, I don't have another persona. But I think for many women, again I'm generalizing. Please forgive me if I do so unfairly. But they're able to handle stress better because they have probably a more balanced view of their own role in the universe, while most men are under this mistaken belief that the world revolves around them while women know it actually does. Just kidding. Right.
So there's a question here. What does a man regret in a failed relationship the most?
Uh, I think it's probably the company. The fact that finally in the end you're looking for somebody to be able to talk with, somebody to be able to hang with, somebody to be able to be with, and if that was not to be, that's a loss. All right. Uh, I'm not particularly one who believes in lifelong fidelity or longevity or any of that sort, and maybe some women do. And for them, maybe for a woman, a failed relationship is a thought that he was the one and he got away, right? And I don't know if that's necessarily what many men feel, yeah, because I don't know if many of us think she was the one or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if there's a gender. Maybe some of us do. So I'm not qualified to answer that because I'm on the other side of the fence out here. But primarily, I mean, it's not just a failed relationship. It's just a blocked relationship. You don't talk to somebody for ages. What happens, right? You just say, hey, man, I missed you. Hey, woman, I missed you. And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's been uh, in fact, there's this really interesting definition of love that I once invited. You love somebody only when you miss them. You ask somebody, when people ask, how do you know it's love? And I say, if I miss you, it's love. If I don't miss you, it wasn't love, right? Similarly, I mean, that's what it is. I mean, love is the need you feel for somebody when they're not there, right? Uh, and so that way, a failed relationship is essentially a loss of love, loss of that companionship when somebody's not there.
Just another thing that comes to my mind, and people are putting in more questions, parenting approach and other things, but I want to
Sure.
ask you one thing, that these days with so much of work hours and everything, as in we are hearing of, because marriages are, because the persons are spending so much time in the workplace, that everything else, the relationships are very transient. So what do you think about that? Corporate is, I mean, there are a lot of studies that are saying that, in, if you want to call it infidelity or whatever, it's on the rise, and it's not only men but it's women also. So what is it about the whole work thing, that is because you're spending so much time together, or
So first of all, I mean, if you look at it statistically, it's mathematically impossible for one gender to have
no, it's
more
both.
infidelity and other to have none. I mean, if only men are sleeping
It's
around
both.
with women or not, then who are they sleeping around with? Each other. I
Yeah.
mean, come
No,
on.
no,
I mean, like,
no, it's
that's nonsense.
both. It's both,
No, I
Mahesh.
understand. I just
Ah,
want. This is
ah,
also the gender
yeah,
stereotype that men fool
yeah,
around with women don't.
yeah,
My answer is if they
exactly.
do, then who are they doing it with, right? So
Right.
the fact is that we are stupid. We're dumb. We don't know how to hide it, right? While women understand how to manage perceptions and manage expectations around these better, right? The other thing is that I, for one, am not a believer in fidelity. It's nothing. It's not. It's a patriarchal crap concept that my genitals belong to you and your genitals belong to me. It's ridiculous. There's no such thing, right? And I don't necessarily believe that just because you're emotionally close with somebody, your genitals belong to that person. And that's a ridiculous, quaint, maybe kind of religious concept. It's there in, I think, Islam, is there in Christianity. It's not there in Hinduism. It's not there in Buddhism. It's not there in the majority of religions around the world. It's a religious concept. It's a male dominated concept that you belong to me, and I can fool around but you can't, or whatever. It's all crap. I don't believe in any of that. So I don't believe in this one man, one woman together forever in hand into the sunset and all that. Yashraj Chopra, Mills and Boone crap of you know yeah, that's okay. Others do. That's perfectly fine. All right. I don't. All right. So that said, if you say, well, what's with the rising infidelity of service? What's wrong with that? It's the way it should be. They should, interesting. I mean, whatever studies we've done in India show the numbers in India are 70% plus. So, if you believe that you're in the majority, uh, uh, that's the majority is on the other side. The majority, 70% of both men and women, uh, are in have had non-fidelity driven relationships, right? So encounters, whatever you want to call it. So for me, it's not a big deal. So if somebody's out there bemoaning that women go to the workplace, that's why marriages break down. Well, you know what? That marriage had to break down anyway. Damn it. The reason to keep a woman from going to the workplace to have her genitals owned by a man is ridiculous. All right, that's bullshit. That's a patriarchal crap mindset that says, no, no, no. तू अगर काम करेगी तो किसी और मर्द को देखेंगी तो क्या हो जाएगा हमारी फैमिली को and it's all nonsense. I think there are old people who believe that, there are young kind of bigots who believe that,
Right.
and hopefully people will take that out of their heads. These are mostly male chauvinists of women, female chauvinists who believe that somebody belongs to them or they belong to somebody. I don't agree with that. So if people have to relate, that's fine. And again, look at it, right? So you're working, the other person's working, you're in some relationship. You go to the office and you treat well. You're not treated as a stereotype, and you're attracted. You like that person. What's wrong with spending time or making love or being in love with that person? Nothing wrong with that, right? Everybody can play multiple roles in your life. So this entire thing that marriages are breaking because women go to work is a crap viewpoint. I'm sorry, I don't agree with you at all. I think they're breaking. Damn well, it's fine. Let them break. It's perfectly cool.
Very honestly answered. Mahesh, what would be your advice or your message to all those aspiring to be like you, and how should they stay humble, grounded, and also how do they handle the men, especially? How do they handle the women at the workplace? You've done it so well. So, what would you say is one mantra to stay safe and to
No, I think see. First of all, I don't think anybody should aspire to be like me. People should aspire to be like themselves. I think the don't try to be like anybody. Don't try to be like your mother, your father, your hero. Try to be like yourself. Right? I think it was either Nietzsche or Camus who said all of life is a journey in trying to be who you are. Something I'm paraphrasing, but something of that sort. Right? I think it was
right,
Nietzsche. So, but put that aside, right? What would it take to come to a point? So, I think it's in some ways the golden rule of do unto others as you would like to have done unto you, right?
until
I worked in enough places where I was treated as shit because I was brown, or because I was not a banya, or because I was whatever, not a sobo urbanite or whatever shit, or I didn't have those class categories, or because in some ways I couldn't pronounce the word correctly. All right, or in many places, for example, because I was not a graduate, or because I was not a postgraduate, or because I did not go to IIT, or did not go to IIM, or did not go to Harvard, did not go to Stanford. So there are. I mean, we tend to be exclusionary, right? As a
yeah,
hey, you and I went to Stephens, those guys who went to Venki's are all crap, right? So
right,
that's this entire thing. So you go through all of this exclusionary stuff, and I've been through quite a bit in my life, right? From, I'm a parent and you cannot live at home, at my home, until you listen to me. And I'm glad I made peace with my dad much later, but under my terms and conditions. So I was very, very clear. And maybe the one thing that that I tell people that people don't tend to agree with is that when you have a disagreement with your parents, it's very clear that they have to change, not you, because you can't change your life to live your life according to them, because that's a life wasted. If anything, you have to make them change. So very, very clear thing is the person who has to change is the old fogey. I'm very, very clear about that. You have more of your life to be yourself. So people say, no, no, I can't change. I have to change myself to a pence, and I don't believe in that at all. I completely don't believe in that. So coming back to this entire thing, how do you like to be treated? Like if you're a lady manager, how would you like to be treated if somebody was your manager? Right? Try to treat others that way. If you're an asshole, and there are many lady managers I know who are, at least in the media industry, it's full of them who are known to be assholes or whatever, and that's it's all right. That's the way it is, right? You will find that at one point your growth will be blocked, and it's not because you're a woman; it's because you're an asshole, right? And ditto with men. I mean, I was an asshole myself till the age of 30. Right, I was this hard-charging guy. I had this ambitious goal that I need to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30, whatever shit, right? And I was a real asshole. And I think something I changed after that, and we're all capable of change. And finally, it comes down to how would you like to get treated if you were working in this company, and would you like to have a boss like treat be an asshole, and how- and I think it really comes down to I don't know too many other ways of the deep philosophical or business. Unpadu, right? All I've learned is how was I treated, or how was I treated when I didn't like it, and I can call it mistreated or whatever. The Lalaji company treats you like Lalaji wants to treat you, and saying, okay, how would I like to treat somebody when somebody works with me? So literally, for example, in the companies that I fund, I typically sit back and say, with HR, the first thing you will put out there is no qualifications required. I mean, the minute you start putting qualifications, I'm going to ask you, what are your qualifications to be an HR, right? So it starts with that saying, so you have to go out there. I know I have no qualifications. So I invested in companies. I have about 10, 15,000 people working in my companies, and I'm a first class pass. So how dare I expect somebody to be an IIT IIM to join my company? I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, how stupid is that, right? And it's a dumb HR who asks for IIT IIMs to join the company. It's like brainless idiots who just want to impress some investors, etc. So it really comes down to, well, sit back and say, look, finally, you know what? What's this entire thing about? You're going to die. We're all going to die. And finally, all that's going to matter is not how much money you have when you're dead, but how much fun you had when you were alive, and maybe what impact you made when you were alive. And it's likely that you made more of an impact if you're not an asshole and more of a nice person, whether you're a male or female, it doesn't matter. So that's about it. How would you like to be treated? So if you ever become a boss, if you're an executive and you're a manager, you were once that person who's reporting to you. And how were you treated and how were you mistreated? And are you doing that all over again? And if was your boss an asshole, and hence are you trying to be an asshole because that's where you think you want to be? No, you can change, right? You can change it. So that culture changes with you. It doesn't just change from the top, it changes with you.
So one last
Sure, sure. There
question
are
that
lots of questions. We can
there are
go
a
ahead
lot
with
of
this one.
questions here. Yeah. There's this when
A
a
few familiar
woman,
faces and names. Hi.
yeah. So when a woman is in love with a man, but the man does not love her, but they have a good personal relationship, does love really matter? And also, yeah, they
So,
just don't have to.
what are her expectations and what is his expectations? I mean, I don't know. Is there a misunderstanding on the word love means? I mean, is the woman thinking that, hey, love is in the Catholic sense that, like I said, me and you hand in hand, edge of the sand, into the future, dancing together, glow of sunlight, Yasha Chopra songs with 5 costume changes. Is that your idea of what love is, or is it like, is it just okay? You love somebody because you miss them, and they love you because they miss you. So you love somebody, and you miss them, and maybe you don't think that they love you with the same intensity you do. Well, it's okay. So what? All right. I see that with my kids all the time. Half the time my kids don't. I don't think my kids love me as much as I love them, right? So every time I call my son, I was like, dude, why don't you call me? Say, yeah, Dad, I'm okay. Like, if I want to call you once a week, is my metric that you have to call me once a week for me to judge that you love me as much? And I think I have to leave it to himself. I don't doubt that he loves me. All right. But if I'm using a metric like how many times does he call me versus how many times do I call you, then that's a flawed metric. I think his life is different. His priorities are different. And I think that you can't use these metrics like, how often do you message me versus how often do I message you? How many times do you say good morning on WhatsApp versus how many times do I say good morning on WhatsApp? These are ridiculous metrics. I mean, finally, if you feel loved, you're loved. If you don't feel loved,
Yeah.
you're not loved. I mean, don't sit back and say, I want to set the expectations. Okay, once a week phone call and once a week ice cream at the bachelor's and once a week, that's ridiculous. I finally, if you feel love, you're loved. And there can be multiple people who love you, and you can love multiple people. I don't particularly believe in this, in the Yashraj Mills and Boone crap. Sorry.
Yeah. So, what is your definition of success now? What do you think?
So, a life well lived, yeah. I think finally it comes down to that. In fact, so one of my clients used to be Jeff Bezos of Amazon. And he said something really, something very simple in a very complex way. He said, success is my success is measured on my RMI, and his RMI was his regret minimization framework. What he basically meant was he looks at something and says, okay, you know what? If I don't do this, then I'm 20 years from now, will I regret it? If I do this, will I regret this? Right. So, and that basically uh, kind of says, okay, how do you live a life without regrets? So in many ways, that's all success is, right? So we are all born with infinite potential. You, me, every single person. Many of us don't live up to a potential because of stereotyping, because how we are programmed by our parents, by others around, or how we listen to their program. Even if they programmed us, doesn't mean you have to listen to their program, right? And hence we don't live life to our full potential, right? And when we realize that we have regrets, I regret that I didn't go out for that trip with him. I regret that I didn't love him back. I regret that I did not marry him. I regret that I did not study that career, that take that course. I regret that I did not pursue that relationship. I regret that I did not kiss him that night or kiss her that night. We have regrets. And the regrets are because you did not live up to your potential. And finally, success is just having no regrets, which is you in your own mind say, I lived up to every single thing I did, or I have as few regrets as possible that I did. I regret very few things, but everything else I'm really cool because I lived up to my fullest potential. I think that's all. Success isn't about how rich or how poor you are. There are many rich idiots, and there are many poor, brilliant people. And wealth is not a metric. But it's a necessity for living. So I think I mean one of the things I like is this interesting Japanese framework called Ikigai, which says, what are you good at? What do people pay you for? What do you love doing? And what makes an impact in the world? And at the intersection of these four kind of circles in the Venn diagram is really where
Yeah.
your life lies. It's not like you have to do this only one thing that answers all four things. I like to travel, but it doesn't pay me anything, right? And I like to mentor startups, and it doesn't pay me anything. But there are a few other things I do. So I do a combination of things that pay me, combination of things that don't pay me very much. So I work in advertising. It doesn't pay really well. I mean, go and own an agency. I make a lot more money investing in companies and buying and selling companies, right? So I think this entire thing about if you look up Ikigai, it's finding
Yeah.
your center based on your what you're doing across these four things. What am I good at doing? What do I get paid for doing? What do I love doing? And what does the world need? What impact can I make? I mean,
Yeah.
these four. And for example, the world might need a cure to pollution. And if you do that, that's impactful. But the world might not need yet another ad film. Maybe you don't know. So we all do a mix of these four things. And the more we have clear ideas, if we have careers which have some elements of each of these, or more increasing elements of each of these, more happier and more quote unquote successful, we have fewer regrets we'll have.
Right. Uh,
Have I bored you completely? All you guys in the audience, hi, I know some of these names. Hello. How's this been so far? I see lots of questions out here. Hi, Lata, D, Shivnaran, a lot of you.
so you can see the questions, and I would also want to tell they can ask more questions. But Mahesh, thank you for being here. And actually, what we are going to be doing is we are going to take in live audience, some of them, and we'll just show them here. And they're going to be if they
Yeah,
so
sure.
that also we thought we must
Sure.
do. But
Absolutely.
please, but before that, please look at the questions, and I think you can see them on your. If you
Yes, yes.
want to, yeah.
Um, teacher sounds to be self-sufficient. Many said not just parents, popular media said stereotypes. I think I answered that. Then Lata said parenting is key. I think we agree. So Pratik said, see, this is where the subtle bias just kicked in. The way the work question was framed, where some women must have tried to use a gender to her advantage. Right? It happens, man. I mean, it's not something good, but men have also tried to
Yeah.
do that.
Yes.
And Shiv said women are not that dumb. They exactly know what's happening. Okay, maybe even men are not dumb. Nobody's dumb. I mean, right? Some. Then Kavita's questions were asked. Lata said, "What would be a parenting approach for couples who are driven apart acrimoniously rather than as friends?" I think in that case, look, I've been through a divorce, and I think all I've tried to do through that is just be calm and say, you know what, it's okay for you to not like me, and that's perfectly fine. All right, that's understandable, and it's also likely that I'm deserving of a dislike, and that's perfectly fine. All right, so you can throw all the venom you want me, and that's fine. That's my problem. I have only one request: keep it away from my kid. All right, so just love him and understand that he has a father and love him. And so when you deal with him, don't talk about me. When I deal with him, don't talk about you. I think just coming to that basis is perfectly fine. I've seen. I mean, I have friends where, for example, I have a very good friend who lost her son to a husband in a custody battle, and he's completely poisoned his son's mind to the point the son doesn't want to see the mother, and the son's not even 16. So the mother hasn't seen her son for years because her ex-husband has told his son that her mother is, all kinds of things which are unprintable in public and unrepeatable in public, right? So I think the key thing is that if you break up, I'm not saying you have to be great friends. It doesn't matter. You are, it's okay. You're not, that's also perfectly okay. I think what's far more important is to come to a very clear agreement that when it comes to the children, right,
Yeah.
that you don't talk about the other part. You don't even say good stuff. Don't have to lie. Just don't talk about. Don't go there. Right? Make that off limits. Right? And it's perfectly fine. And it's perfectly okay. And the kids trust them. They know enough, and they have the sense to be able to go up and say, you know what? Okay, I can sense that Mama doesn't like Papa. I can sense that Papa doesn't like Mama. But they both love me, and I'm cool. That's fine. It also teaches them a very important lesson that love can and should be unconditional. It can't be that if you love me, beta, then you can't love Papa, or you love me, beta, you can't love mama, right? It can't be conditional that way. I think that's really evil when you do that. So I would just really answer that probably the best way is to come to this agreement and respect this agreement from both sides, saying that, all right, it's perfectly fine. We don't like each other. And I'm not asking for you to be peaceful with me. Just, yeah, throw all your venom at me, take your anger out at me, keep doing that, hate me for the rest of your life. That's perfectly fine. That's okay. Just don't bring this up in front of the kids. Don't even hide this. Just say we won't talk about that. And I think that's probably the mature thing to do. If I could, I mean that's my personal take. Again, you're the psychologist, Chavi, not I, but that's what I would do in that situation, right? Shiv said, "What's your advice to men in higher positions in corporates on how to handle women in the workplace?"
We took that.
We took that question, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, then every day, multiple times a day, stalking. I don't know what that question was. Very insightful. You have been good. Thank you so much. Very sharply articulated. Okay, I think it seems all right. I
Yeah.
think DC, I don't know who that is, says something. It's the parents
Yeah.
who should change. But there are people out there. Let's take other
Yeah.
people. Hi guys.
But Mahesh, I must say this has been you've been it's such a privilege, and you've been so honest about, and you've given your answers so honestly. I
Hey,
mean,
thanks,
it's
man. Thank you so
very
much.
honest, and
Thank you.
I mean that's I really don't know what to say to that, but
Oh, thank you. I mean,
very good.
I think this is really interesting for me because I'm most often asked about tell me about theories of marketing, tell me about startup investing, tell me about your investing thesis, and tell me about your venture capital thesis, and will you fund me? And thank you, please, for not asking me any of those questions. Yes, I am those things. Yes, I'm an investor, and yes, I'm a marketer, and yes, I run companies. But that's just some aspects of the kaleidoscope. There's much more.
Yeah.
Thank you for at least touching on some of that. For me, it's a privilege. Thank you. And
So
hi,
we
Jen.
have
Hi, Madhuri. Yeah,
Hi.
please, Madhuri, you want to go first?
hi, Jen.
Yeah.
Your
What?
feedback.
No. About this talk, I
Yeah.
unfortunately missed some of it, so I'm going to go back and check it out. But I found it was really very interesting. Though initially I had a little difficulty in getting what you were saying because you're very, very, very fast. But
Thank you for the
we are
feedback.
speaking very quickly. For
I
me,
will
to
reply slowly from
no. But then
how
I got
or
but then I got used to your the rhythm of your flow of your words, and I liked what you were saying, and I found that it was very, very interesting, and it made me laugh. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Madhuri. Thanks. But I should speak slower. I think I just got very excited with the fact that I'm being asked these questions that nobody ever asked me. I think, all right, I've got so much.
Yeah, yeah. Chavi does that. Chavi does that because
Thank you.
she got me to talk, and I don't know, I went all over the place. So
Same
she
here.
does that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Same here.
No, I didn't. I have more questions, but I just refrained from asking them.
You've been a great host, Chavi.
Yeah,
Hi,
you
Jen.
know what? Yeah,
Yeah.
this was this whole series that you've had, Chavi, about men has been so interesting, really. And I wanted my son to see it, and he is in. He's sitting in isolation, so I guess I've sent him links. He must have seen it, but it was really, really a very fun thing, and knowledgeable. I really got to know, because you, like he said, you have certain prejudices in your mind, that this is how, if he's a guy, this is how he's going to react, and it's not always so. And then sometimes you realize that they don't have it as easy as he's made it sound too, because you have a lot of expectations from men, and now women are changing, but those expectations that we have from men haven't changed. You get what I'm saying? But
Yes.
women have changed, so it's going to be a little tougher for them,
That's
I
good, no?
guess. I don't know whether, see, I've always felt that when you are correcting an injustice, it is always better not to perpetuate another injustice. To that's my
No,
thought
you're right. I
process.
agree.
It's
But also the nature of change, no, Madhuri, that I've noticed is that
pendulum.
let
Yeah,
yeah, it's a
yeah,
pendulum. You
yeah.
start here and you go there and you come back and you finally
I,
come to a reasonable point, right? So, I mean, just
so
like for
long as
example,
it's not a perpetual motion all the time,
I understand, and
with mostly, yeah,
much like, for example, there was a huge fight for women's voting rights, which everybody agrees to, and then there was a huge fight for women's workplace equality, which everybody agrees to.
yeah.
But now people understand that women require maybe some more time off after childbirth than men do, and so on and so forth, right? Uh, so, in fact, when one of my companies, both parents, men and women, both get 3 months off after child, right? And the guy said, I don't need 3 months, right? And I said, dude, it's 3 months with pay. What's your problem?
You do,
No, I
yeah.
want to come to work. Right? So you had to almost get the f home and be with your kids, right?
Kid, yeah,
I
I
think
know.
because most men are made to be like, मेरा क्या मेरा तो काम हो गया ना. मतलब
But I think
I
things are
I
changing now.
I have
Maybe
impregnated her
mostly.
and वो सब मेरा काम हो गया, right? So I think that's one thing.
The things are changing now, I guess, and I would like more of this. If your series on men ending, because I would really like more on how they're supposed to handle their relationships and what they think about relationships. I would like more of that, and
I'm happy.
I'll make my husband see that too, because
Now
otherwise
now now I understand your agenda.
there's always an agenda.
Now I understand your agenda.
No, but it'll be fun. It'll be a fun thing to watch together, right? It'll be
Yeah.
a fun thing to watch together. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
You.
think when he's watching that, you'll be watching him saying, अब क्या सोच रहा है देख ले.
Yeah.
No, I've been married for 26 years, so I know mostly वो क्या सोच रहा है, and he knows mostly मैं क्या सोच रही हूँ. So yeah.
Right.
Don't be so sure.
They're
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
It's nice to keep each other on your toes and not take each other granted. That is true. But yeah, mostly Yeah.
Hi,
Jen.
Jen.
Hi, hi. So it's been an awesome session, and I
Okay.
think the entire series itself.
Somebody else is on, Ravi, or is it just
Yes,
me?
get
No,
Yeah.
they'll
No,
come.
uh,
They'll come.
yeah,
and
the Jen.
Jen is on.
so while I was watching today, I was thinking that a lot of people got to
And you're
go
looking
home.
good today.
A lot of people tonight
Is that
are
to
going
me or to
to.
Chavi?
I don't
Anyone
know.
can
We are
take
doing
that.
pro.
I just
I
threw
know.
that, so you take
Okay.
it. Take
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Be
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
happy.
you.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
another way of saying every other day I look ugly, but I'll take it. Thank you.
Yeah, see, I've never seen
Yeah.
you every other day. So
All right.
Madhuri
Thank you.
Jayant is there online, so
yeah, okay.
Okay, so what I was thinking while watching today was a lot of people tonight are going to be thinking, why isn't my boss like Mahesh? You know, why isn't my
Oh,
spouse like Mahesh? Understanding, enlightened, that kind of a thing. So I have a question. You did say that up to 30 you were different. So this version of you which we see, there must have been certain turning points in your life which perhaps changed your perspective or broke some frameworks, or, that kind of a thing. Perhaps if you feel like
Sure.
it, you can share a
Yeah,
few.
yeah, absolutely. There's uh, so a couple of things. So my I was when I left home, I remember my dad telling me, "You'll never be much anything more than a waiter in a Udupi restaurant, right?" And that's okay. He was entitled to his point of view, and I was literally on the street. So I, I remember at that point, one of the good things about my job as a door-to-door salesman is I had to wear a tie and a shirt, which means that at the end of the day, I could find a marriage reception, park my moped outside, walk in as a guest, pretending to be a guest of the groom or the bride, and eat free food and run away before I got beaten up, right? Because I had no money, I had no food, right? And for me, at some point, I had kind of, as you read Fortune magazine, I kind of figured, look, unless I was ambitious, I'm going to get nowhere. And I'd set this goal for myself, and it's a stupid goal in retrospect, but I was young, I was impressionable. So sometime then I set myself this goal saying, you know what, I was in advertising, and I said, okay, I'm going to become the creative director of an agency, all right? And I'm going to have $1 million, and both of this has to happen before I'm 30, right? It's a ridiculous goal. Most people don't become creative directors till they're 40, 45, and in advertising, very, very few people make $1 million, right? But I had set myself these goals, and I started kind of believing that you have to be this goal-driven person, and that made me an asshole. All right. So I was a really unpleasant person. I was a really unpleasant boss. I would kind of, I would think that I knew everything. And, when somebody said something, I would cut them off. And, I literally was a dickhead. And so here's what happened. I mean, long story short, sorry. Uh, but I turned 30, and actually I was the creative director of an American agency. And I had more than $1 million in the bank, right? Both of these happened. And I remember going to the office the day after my birthday, and I was sitting there, and I felt like shit because I had no other ambition in my life. It's like I've done what? I mean, I was driven by this one thing, and I got here, and it means nothing because the sun still rose the next day. Nobody gave a damn. I mean, there was no ticker tape parade on the streets, like nothing. And I said, what the hell was wrong with me, right? And then I kind of figured that what I really lost during all of that, and it's not like I needed the money. My friends were all buying uh, you know, Porsches and private planes. I didn't care for that. I still don't care for that. So I kind of figured that I had really lost, even though I had money in the bank, which I never touched for the longest time. I lost friends, I lost people, and I was really a dickhead. So literally the next day, I said my goalpost was wrong. All right, my goalpost were of judging my life by the rank I held and the money I had in the bank was a ridiculous goalpost. All right, and that's literally when I sat back and said, no, I cannot live life to maximize money. I have to live life to maximize my happiness. And it sounded very, even more selfish, but actually, in that there's a lot of nuance. My happiness comes from my kids happy, and and so on and so forth. So that was a big change where I actually it was not like overnight, but literally I think a month after that I became a very different person because I started saying, okay, if I've done this ridiculous goal and I was able to succeed at it, I can succeed at saying, okay, fine, next decade I'll do 10 million and whatever. And, but that I would still figure out saying, okay, I have 10 million in the bank, nothing to do. And the decade after, say 100 million, right? So I think that was a change that happened where I literally kind of got off uh, the exercise, the treadmill. And I said, no, I'm not going to be in that one. That doesn't, it's not like I can't do it. I can, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I'm not particularly driven by money. It's a good thing to have. It's a good thing to make. नहीं होता है, नहीं होता, ठीक है, मैं मरूंगा थोड़ी, मैं मरूंगा नहीं. It's all right. I hope that answers your question somewhat, Jan.
So basically, one turning point which changed everything.
That was one. I mean, there've been several. I think my kids have been one. Listening to Pink Floyd when I was 17 was one. So I say this sometimes that I had an uncle who passed away when I was very young, my mother's brother, and he left a collection of LP records. And one of the records I listened to a lot while I was going to college, and I was completely perplexed with what this damn thing was. This is not what I thought college was supposed to be. Because still, like, engineering college is heaven, and I go there and Don't like this shit. So as you listen to this album of Pink Floyd called Dark Side of the Moon, there's a song in it called Time, and the lyrics are something like, taking away the moments that make up a dull day. You fritter and waste the hours in an offhand way, kicking around in a piece of ground in your hometown, waiting for someone or something to show you the way. Tired of lying in the sunshine, staying home to watch the rain. You are young, life is long, there is time to kill today. And then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's one of my favorite songs. If you ever meet me at karaoke, I'll probably be singing this. So, anyway, so I was sitting there and I was listening to this particular song again and again and again, and the entire thing about kicking away that moments that make up a dull day, kicking around on a piece of ground in my hometown. I said, "Fuck, that's me. I am kicking around on a piece of ground in my hometown, waiting for someone or something to show you the way." And this was, Roger Waters of Pink Floyd literally telling me that's what I was doing. And that kind of said, I can't do this anymore. So I don't know what to do. I don't know what I want to do, but I know I don't want to do this college, right? And since then, I've actually been okay with that. So many people say, if you want to get out of this, what's your plan next? And I don't know. I know that this is not it. So I've actually been able to not so much guide myself by what I want to do, but by saying, this is what I don't want to do. So my life has been in some ways, just uh, if I look at the errors have been so, and the errors have become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller because it's not like I'm going in a straight line. It's like, yeah, that's way off, and that's way off, and that's way off, that's this way off, and this way off, and this way off. So essentially, it's like, you come closer and closer to figuring out what you want to do. Even now, I'm not so sure. I never thought I would be an investor. I never thought I'd be a marketer. I didn't know all of this stuff. Even now, I'm young. I'm thinking about it. I have another 30 years ahead of me, working years. All of us do. I don't know what I'll be tomorrow. I have no idea. And it's okay. But I know what I don't want to be. And that's also okay.
Thank you.
Good man.
Thank you so much, Jayant. He's a psychologist, okay, and
Oh
an
my God!
industry person. So
Both of you are now analyzing me and making notes.
no,
I,
no, no, no.
I remember once being in some interview session for some scholarship, NTA scholarship or something, and there were 7 people at a table, and 6 of them asked me questions all the time, right? And I was like answering questions. The 7th one kept taking notes, and finally, at the end of the entire interview, I looked at him, and said, "So you never asked me a question?" He said, "Yeah, I'm the psychologist." At which point, so yeah. Yeah, so I'd probably make it to a footnote of some research paper saying, yeah, look at that case.
I think we'll add it to the people who love Pink Floyd.
So there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's another question that is there. Radhika has asked, how do you handle successful men who are very dominating and controlling in the personal life too? I mean, it's just an extension. They extend the work role to the boundaries get blurred, and leading the team at work transcends the leading the partner. What is your advice?
No, I think it's a good question. I've seen people like this. So the first thing is I'm not really sure they're successful men. They are rich men, they're dominating men, but I'm not particularly sure they're successful men, right? Because if first of all you have to lead by dominating, you're a type A, whatever else it is. I mean, you don't. Not too many smart people want that kind of leadership in, right? Many Ladajis do that, but most people in the workforce, they want to be treated with respect as opposed to with fear, right?
Yeah.
You want somebody to know that you're there because your knowledge is respected, not that your servility is respected, right? So first of all, I'm not particularly so by this person that she's talking about might be wealthy, might be dominating, but that's not to me successful because obviously the family that is with this person does not particularly feel that this person is successful in any way, right? But I think maybe it's slowly this person will come to realize, or you can pause this person there. This person will lose his spouse. This person will lose his children. And once he loses his spouse and loses his children, he then understand that he's not really successful. And the way short of that is for this person to then be told that, dude, you think you're successful, but you're not. All right. I am your spouse, and I feel like a rag that you walk on, and the children, are scared shitless about you. And the first chance they'll get, if it wasn't for your money, they'll run away. All right. So I think probably somewhere the change is really going to come in this person's realization that they're not successful. I think when you're treated for bad habits, you begin to think that those are the habits that make you successful. When you're told that you're a dominating type A decisive guy, you believe that's what you've got to be in every other way. And that's again the way that stereotyping, when that's what you're treated for. And uh, increasingly in this person's work, that's not going to be successful because good people don't want to work for somebody who shouts at them. Right? Even the best performing Lalajis, the difference between Mukesh and Anil Ambani is also that Anil shouts at people and Mukesh doesn't. Right? You must understand that people prefer working under one over another. That I mean, among many other character issues out there. Right? So I think you'll meet and you will also find that these are the guys who frequently tend to abuse their spouses, abuse their children, and so on and so forth. And that's simply because they're insecure. They're used to a certain form of adulation from their employees that, sir, you're the greatest, sir, you're the best. And when their spouses don't tell them that you're the greatest, when the lovers don't say that they're greatest in bed, when the children don't say that they're greatest dads, I think that's when the realization comes. All right. So probably this person, I would say needs some counseling, or you need a heart to heart, one to one person saying, yeah, dude, uh, your wealth doesn't matter here. That success is not success here. Success isn't wealth. It is being loved. That's what success is. That's my take. But you're the psychologist, not I.
There's another question that is there, that what keeps you motivated at work? Since you said that your goal is not to maximize money but happiness. I think it's self obvious, but Manish has asked. So.
Yeah, sure. So I think what's motivated. See, I like doing new stuff, and I like throwing myself into stuff that I've never done before in some ways. So I'm not particularly phased by stuff, right? So
Hmm.
I have as much qualifications to launch satellites as I have to write ads or as I have to make films. I nothing. I have no qualifications for any of them, and it's okay. I think I've done all of them. I still will do all of them, and I actually learned. If I take an aside, I learned something from again Jeff Bezos, which was really interesting. I remember one day sitting and having breakfast with him, and I was then I had about 10 years experience in advertising, and this guy was literally like his first year running a company, and he was giving me gyan on advertising. And finally, I was having breakfast and I said, Jeff, how do you know this shit, man? I mean, I do this work, not you, right? And he looked back at me and said, Mahesh, I own a bookstore. It took me a while to figure out, he was then running Amazon.com, which was then a bookstore. And he didn't know anything. He just bought every book on the subject and read it. And at least he knew as much as most of the other top thinkers there. And that's how. So then I said, okay, that's okay. So if once I became an agent, once I wanted to open up a film production studio, I just learned how to do that. I wanted to become an angel investor. I read every book on becoming an angel investor. I wanted to become a venture capitalist. I read every book on becoming a venture capitalist. I now want to be I now invest in space. I read every book I can on that. I just learned. So I would again come back to the same. If I have a chance, if there's something interesting, I'm not particularly phased by the learning curve. I mean, yeah, there's something I can't be a good brain surgeon because that requires a huge amount of knowledge and experience, and skills that I don't have. But there's other things I can be, and that's perfectly fine. I think if it tickles some part of my mind, I'm into it. So I'm, uh, I think once my dad had this conversation, what is this you're doing here? You're a jack of all trades, and the master of none. What is this you're doing? And a realization came to me and said, you know what, Dad, actually, that's pretty cool. I would like to be a jack of all trades. And now maybe a three of all trades, and I'll become a four of all trades, I'll become a five of all trades. I'll be really happy to end up as a jack of all trades because I can't be a master of any, and that's okay by me. And I think, so I'm perfectly okay. I'm not good at any one thing. But so what keeps me motivated is finding new things to do, learning new stuff about myself, taking new experiences, traveling. Traveling is a great thing because what travel does is it takes you out of the environment you're in and you kind of examine yourself and how you relate in a place where nobody speaks your language, nobody knows who you are, nobody treats you like anything great, and you're just another human being. Uh, and that's something really cool to me because I learn more about myself when I travel, and that's what's cool to me. I mean, travel is a big tool of Zen meditation for me because literally it's throwing me from a familiar environment where I'm well looked after, whether it's home or office,
Right.
to an environment where I don't know anybody and nobody knows me, and I don't travel five-star deluxe in. So I hope that answers your question in a very
Yeah.
roundabout way like this.
Yeah. We'll invite some more people. So
Sure.
thank you, Madhuri, and thank you, Jayant.
Thank
I think we have some more people. We'll take them live only. Ananjit is there. Mrinalini is there.
Hey,
Hi,
and
hi,
I mean,
hi. Good to see you.
good to see you.
Good to see
You're the
both of
reason.
your friends.
Thank you for suggesting my name to Chavi. I think you're the one who did it, right?
Yeah,
It's all
pretty
your
much.
fault. It's all your fault.
It's all my fault. I'll take the place.
Yeah.
I don't think too many people are going to come after me for doing that. Going by the comments, I think a lot of people have enjoyed this talk as much as I have. Unfortunately, I missed a bit in between because of a connection problem here. Uh, Anandjit,
I
I
am.
don't. I think I missed his talk. Yes.
I am.
Uh,
Hi.
Hi, Ananjit.
uh, yeah, but I think the series, Chavi, which you've done, Men on Men, was much required and really enlightening in many ways. I mean, men are taken for granted. Their minds are taken for granted. We've done psychology and we understand that. Uh, One thing that I would like to, add over here is my exposure, man. What really, what was a turning, I would say a moment of realization for me was when I came across this book. It was an audiobook which I heard when I would drive of two psychologists, both men, who were treating a lot of uh, school-going boys with not severe mental disorders, but the anxieties and the depression and what they would face. And their observation was that our entire education system, the method in which we measure intelligence, the examination systems, are all geared in a manner which fits the female mind rather than the male mind, especially at that age, because their learning is a lot more spatial, it's a lot more physical. You know,
Yeah.
it's a lot more game learning
Nini,
rather than bookish.
Mrinalini, you'll have to speak a little closer to the microphone. Your voice is not
No,
audible. That's,
you're not
yeah.
very audible. I mean,
Okay, am I audible now?
better,
Yeah.
much
Is
better.
that better? Yeah. Uh, their observation was that a lot of our that the way our education system is designed, the way our examinations are designed, is more sitting on the desk and answering questions is more geared to the female mind, which is why you see females doing better at examinations by and large than males, because boys usually at that level are learning more through playing games, solving problems, physically exploring themselves, exploring their own strengths, challenging each other. So their entire growth trajectory is very different, and it is not mapped on in our education system at all. So I'd like to know what the men on the panel have to observe about this. Did they find this?
Anand, do you want to go first?
Well, Anandjit and Mahesh, both of you, I'd like to know what your observations are.
Sure, Anand, go first.
Mahesh, would you like to go first or?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. As I always keep on telling Chavi, I'm very much like as Mahesh was saying, I'm a kaleidoscope of many Venn diagrams and master of none. So I won't give an expert opinion. I can share my life experience. When I was in class 2, uh, so my mom was called many times, guardian call. I knew the reason was what. So I will write a question. There was a question. So Bengali was my first language, and I will write every question in 4 different forms. So I still remember two. I still remember two, and my mom's blood pressure was always 180, 190 because of me. Just imagine the elder child being so studious, doing so well, and in the same school, the younger one being called again and again in every class. So what I had done was there was a question, and I will erase the first answer, then rewrote the answer again in a different form, and I was severely penalized. reprimanded. And that answers to the point that you said, that there is no experimental or experiential incentive from our schooling system. That, I mean, why do I need to write 5 question answers? I might as well just write one question in 4 different forms. If it's a question of literature, everyone, it's the perspectives, as Mahesh rightly said. Success doesn't have one answer. It's all perspectives. Success is not measured by, if you see several famous singers, even now they're singing Besura, but they're successful. But there are many singers also. I have seen enormous singers while traveling in local train. I remember a fantastic folk singer with whom I was traveling in a passenger bogie way back in 99 2000 from Delhi. I will always go by this 200 rupees ticket at that point of time. So we chatted the entire 32 hours till Kolkata. We were sitting in front of the loo, the toilet. You can see the stingy toilet. And he taught me so much about life than my school exams. And he taught me so much about music. He taught me so much about, he was a singer using 2 stones composing music. So the education system has to be such open. But in your exam system is all about, you want to stereotype everything. As Mesh was saying, I mean, I don't give any blame to this society. Once a child is born, you are killing. Everyone is rushing to kill a new life. There's no sense of respect for a new life. We want the child to follow based on the age. We want the child to even respect the mistakes. Say, I have made several mistakes, I tell my cousins, reprimand me openly. The moment I should be respected because of my actions, even if with the mistakes, if I have the courage to say that no, I was wrong. I mean, that these things should be coming more naturally in the education system. I somewhat don't like to bring in this man, woman, girl, boy. I think if we in this space don't what should I say? If we don't question this stereotyping everywhere, then who else will do? And our narratives also. So in our narratives, the entire man, boy, woman also should go away now. I think it has to be so open. That's the space and time we have to be.
So I have a slightly different take on it, if I may. Am I audible?
Yes,
May I
yes,
speak?
Mahesh.
All right. So, if you, I mean, just talking specifically on the education system, I'll question on your question, Mini. I'll come at this from two sides. One, why is the system this way? And two, why do girls do better at it, right? And I'll talk about this, right? And maybe it's coincidental that they do better at it, right? So our system is this way because our system is based on the education system the British left us. And the education system the British left us was all about creating people who would be very good workers under British management and British rule. Even our colleges, they're called Indian Institutes of Management because you want to create managers who work for owners, right? You don't want to create an Indian Institute of Entrepreneurs. You rather than saying an Indian Institute of Employers, you're creating an Indian Institute of Employees, right? So our education system is about being a good employee, all right?
Yes.
And so hence, can you do this? And I will tell you to do this, right? So it's not really about learning as much as can you follow my orders and can you listen to me and can you do this? And the better you listen to me and the better you do your syllabus and better follow, and that's what you gets you more marks. It's a different thing that those marks mean nothing to me. And I say that as somebody who's actually played that game and done the talking and stuff. Right? Now to the second thing, and if you'll allow me to digress for a minute or two, and this is another silly theory that I have, I'll bring it up, and maybe it's a question back to the two ladies out here. Uh, Many lives of Indian women today are what I call 22, 22, 44 in my own head, and if I write about it, I'm sure I'll get shellacked. But how I see it is the typical Indian woman, at least of our generation, is brought up for the first 22 years of her life by her parents completely controlling her. And while they control her, they make her also believe that she owes them a lot, all right? That she absolutely owes everything to them, yet they control her, right? So actually, when she comes out at 22, she's like, "Oh my God, I now have followed every instruction my parent have asked me to. Have done everything, but I owe them a lot." So now, for the next 22 years, she goes from the deficit back to zero by saying, "I have to pay back my parents." And how does she pay back that debt of gratitude? by marrying who they wanted to marry, by having the kids they wanted to have, by having the in-laws they wanted to have, by building a house, by being a good mother, every single thing. So for the first 22 years of her life, she listens to her parents. The next 22 of her life, she tries to pay back her parents by listening to even more of what they say. So finally, when she's 44, 22 plus 22, the kids have left the house. That's the first time she sits and says, "Who the F am I?" Right? What am I here for? Earlier, I went from zero to negative. Negative, I came back to zero. Right? So really, for the next 44 years of her life, is the only time she actually begins to find herself. I mean, again, I'm generalizing, right, to a large extent. And I've seen that in many of my friends in my generation. It may not be true of my kids' generation. And so when you put these together out here, and Indian women are trained by their parents to be subservient, to be respectful, to listen to everything mama says, be a good girl, listen to me, be a good girl. And you hear that far more than be a good boy, listen to me. All right? He's a naughty boy. What the khelta hai? No, my girl has to listen to me. So there's differential parenting styles are coming everywhere because you expect unquestioned obedience from your daughters, and you expect a little bit of like, so when Anand Ananjit was called to school, yeah, वो लड़का है ना, वो तो होता ही है. But that would never have been accepted if it was a girl, right? Because you expect subservience. So the reason, so it's really a mix of our cultures and the education system that we had nothing to do, that have come together in one. And what's the answer to that? The answer to that is, well, it's your education system. Don't expect any damn thing from it. So if you get them topper, तो क्या बनेगा? All toppers come croppers. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter which damn school you send your children to. कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ा, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. Like, makes no bloody difference, right? I went to Kendriya Vidyalaya. In fact,
Yeah.
Chavi, I don't know if you know, Minu was my junior in school, right? That's why we
Yeah.
know each other. It's a lower middle class school. In class 8, my parents paid 8 rupees a month as fees. In class 9, it was 9 rupees. In class 10, it was 10 rupees. And that's it, right? It doesn't matter. So the key thing to do is to not hope for a great, super great education system because it's shit. It's okay, just accept it. Shit, ठीक है यार. जब it's like Delhi pollution है तो क्या करेंगे अब? ठीक है यार, जी लो. COVID है तो क्या करें? Is the government today saying lockdown 1, 2, 3, 4 सब काट रहे हैं. अब मतलब आप राम भरोसे आप जो करना कर लो, right? You have given up, right? So it's exactly the education system. The only way to do it is expect nothing. Okay. Or if you want some minor stuff, yeah, okay, send somebody to a Montessori instead of a regular nursery, send somebody to an IB school instead of a CBSE, because but maybe you can't afford it, still doesn't matter. Right. So that's my entire take on this. And the only by completely disregarding the value of this education will you again bring girls out of the thing that I have to be a topper. Because the mothers
Yeah.
want them.
Yeah. That's true too.
Only now mothers are realizing, hey, topper ho to be first class first होगी कुछ होता नहीं है. Topper हो के
Yeah.
कुछ बनता नहीं है, right? And I think now people are realizing that. In my time, my parents were all about engineering, medicine. That's about the chartered accountancy. And now it's like, ठीक है यार, ballet dancer भी है, कुछ junior artist भी है, cricketer भी है, ये भी है. There's a wider range of hairdresser भी है, acceptable careers. I hope that answers some of your point, Mini.
Yeah, I mean, what I was mentioning was in a much broader context. I mean, the points you made were very valid, Mahesh. What I was mentioning was a much broader context because the study I mentioned was in the U.S. These are boys of living in the U.S. and the psychologists were U.S. So this is a universal gender thing. That's what I meant.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Could be. You would know
but
better. You guys are experts in this. I am.
Yeah, but from what you've said, there's one observation that I'll make. I mean, I do find that women motivate their daughters a lot, but I also find when men groom their daughters, there is a different kind of success that. I mean, I can't say different kind of success, but it contributes a lot to the success of women.
You're an example of that, Minu. I mean,
Absolutely.
I know you're that. I mean, what you've done is awesome, and I think it's all your. I mean, it's not just your credit, also to your parents' credit. I always wish I had daughters. In fact, in each of my kids' cases, I gave them unisex names, and I actually ended up sadly with 3 sons.
I think one value that that you have really I would say held up, Mahesh, is risk taking, and I wish children parents taught their children the value of taking risks.
We are over
at every
protective, right?
level. Yeah, at every level.
Yeah, I was reading about I read about Richard Branson when he was living with his aunt and uncle, not with his parents when he was 10 and 11. And one day, his aunt and uncle took him out somewhere in the countryside, about 10 kilometers away or whatever, and let him off the car and said, "Make your way home." All right, and he was 10 years old. He knew nothing, and he made his way home. And they actually kept pushing him out there, and finally he said, yeah, I can do anything because I'm not afraid of failure. I think
Yeah.
risk taking is about saying, oh my God, तुम fail हो जाओगे तो क्या होगा? And my answer is, होगा तो क्या होगा? Fail होगे तो क्या होगा? कुछ नहीं होगा ना,
Yeah.
right? So
True.
I think the key thing
True.
is to sit back and say, what's wrong with failure, man? Look, as
Absolutely.
we said when we started, I failed multiple times, and I think you only learn by failing. And I'm okay. Look,
Yeah.
I've invested in 63 companies, and I think at least 20 have failed. Some more will
Wow.
fail, right? It's okay. It's all right. It's perfectly fine. Failure doesn't mean you die. I keep telling people you can die of malaria. You can die of a car crossing and the road.
Yeah.
You can't die of entrepreneurship, and you can't die
True.
of failed entrepreneurship. You can't die. These are not risks that you die for. So you understand what you can die of. You avoid that. You can die of COVID-19, but you can't
Yeah.
die of doing a startup. But strangely, we want to break the COVID-19 rules, but we don't want to do a startup, which is kind of like left in my head.
Yeah.
Why would you do that, right? So I think the key thing is to say it's not about go take any and all risk, but you understand what is the real risk. The real risk is
Yeah.
a risk
Yeah.
to health.
Yeah.
A risk to reputation doesn't matter. So what was really flung upon me when I dropped out of college and left home was the risk to reputation. तो क्या बनेगा? Risk to career. क्या बनेगा? तो waiter बनेगा. It's okay. I think that's perfectly fine. It doesn't bite anymore. It used to bite once upon a time, but it's not a health risk, right? I would,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's far more important to say, dude, stay healthy.
Yeah.
This is what I tell my son. I don't care what you do, just stay healthy, right?
Yeah.
जो करेगा ठीक है, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't matter, but I think that's really, and I don't know about successful failure. I mean, who's to judge what is successful style of parenting and what's a failure style of parenting? I think the only tools I can give my kids are like the tools that help them be the best they can be, whatever they are. If one
Exactly.
wants to be the best hairdresser in the world, so be it. If one wants to be the worst hairdresser in the world, so be it. Catch it. मेरे को क्या पता?
Yeah, there's a question here that Parul has asked that coming to school only, it is the way girls, and this is, she said that girls come out, it's girls do better because schools are not free from restrictions, but they break restrictions. And this is one thing, Mahesh, that I think we have to understand. Even in a university, we have majority of female and women people working, but in the top leadership, there are very less. And so I think what the point we've made, and I think we answer Parul's this, is that yes, girls are taught to not take risks. That's what
And I
you've
think a
done.
lot of this is strange. So you're right. When I go to speak at schools and colleges, there are in many of these colleges, MBA colleges. I'm funny. I told my dad, by the way, I do go to IIT, I do go to IIM, but I go there to teach, not to learn. Anyway, so when I go there, it's actually they're reasonably gender balanced. But the strange thing is when the plans come in, it's really crazy to see 90% plus plans come from men. And I'm not seeing that many plans from women. I never have. I probably get 200 plans a month and about 2,000 a year. And it's been happening for 20 years. So maybe 40,000 plans or whatever. So I don't know what they feel. So maybe the entire thing is that they think it has to be perfect, and if it's not perfect, it shouldn't go out. It doesn't matter. Right? Nothing is perfect. You cannot predict the future in perfection. So again, I come back to the core point. Are you comfortable with ambiguity? That's what I was
Yeah.
looking for, ambiguity, right? If you're comfortable with ambiguity, you will do well. And you just have to be comfortable with ambiguity. So I am even on a personal front, I'm asked by people saying, I'm in this kind of stage with this guy. I don't know what it is. It's killing me. Can you please define what it is? And I'm saying, why can't you be comfortable with ambiguity? क्या लगता है? I mean, what are you going to gain by putting a label on it? क्या फर्क पड़ता है, right? So if you're comfortable with ambiguity, you're comfortable with not knowing what the future will bring. That's when you go ahead. But if you agonize, oh my God, I need to model the future, you kind of be staring there because nobody can model the future, and you'll be so scared of your models. We don't look for people who can predict the future. We look for people who can create it. Please
Yeah.
understand, right? And it's a huge difference. The only way you can create it is by accepting that I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
All right. But if A happens, I'll react in this way. B happens, I'll react in this way. C, and because I know how I will respond to all these changing circumstances, I'm comfortable with ambiguity. I'm comfortable not knowing exactly what will happen, but I have the equipment to survive no matter what. That's all we look for, right? I think if you bring, whether it's kids, boys, girls, it doesn't matter, right? If you bring them up with this entire idea, it's all right. And the way to do this is to actually do it with their lives. I didn't, with my two younger kids, with my eldest, I sent him out there and said, go find your own house. मेरे को क्या करना? कर, right? And he's kind of like figured out that he's gone from a warm, embracing kind of home to like big bad world in San Francisco. The younger two kids are getting there, like, but I'm getting like so okay. As in, I tell the 9-year-old, go get this. And he says, where do I get it? Go find out. All right. So then he has to go, take the money, go to shop, find out, and he comes back triumphantly, say, I found it. And it was in this shop. And you know what I thought? And I figured it out. That's what. Don't
Yeah.
give like people hyper directions. And especially with girls, I know maybe, there's reputations that Delhi's a bad place, etc. Right? It's okay. Find a safe place to live. Right? That's okay. But please let them understand, get comfortable with ambiguity. So it's not even risk. Risky is a bad word. Nobody likes to, it's not like I love risk. All right. I don't love risk. I don't live a risky life. I don't step into the middle of the road where, without looking left and right. That's not who I am. What I do is I calculate risk. I compute in my head and I take my chances knowing my capabilities against that. Every single thing I do, it looks critical, but I start by saying, what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
Similarly, if you can put your daughters and your sons into these positions where they're not driven by what they learn in school, but they're driven by projects that say that are ambiguous. It's okay. You find out. You find out. You find out. There's no wrong answer. There's failure doesn't matter, right? I think that's where you get to these. I mean, so risk is a. I understand what you're saying, Chavi, but it's not about risk. It's not like I'm saying go take a risk. We are managers of risk. We learn how to manage risk by saying, how do I manage risk? I manage risk by bringing it down, and I bring down risk by increasing my confidence. I increase my confidence by doing a few things that give me the ability to manage the risk. Right? That's how if you do everything risky, you'll die. So the point is, yeah, some of you will die, but you manage the risk so that you don't die. And about managing risk is learning how to deal with this future you know nothing about, which is about ambiguity, and I'm okay with ambiguity. कल क्या होगा नहीं पता. ये लॉकडाउन कितना लंबा टिका नहीं पता, ठीक है. Right? लॉकडाउन
Yeah.
खुलने के बाद क्या होगा नहीं पता, तो ठीक है. Or it work through your mind. So I don't know. This can happen, that can happen, this can happen, that can happen, but be okay with everything. Don't look for clarity. Don't look for, I want to know exactly. I want to put a label on it. Don't put a label on it. Be comfortable without it being labeled, without it being clear. It's a fog out there. That's fine. All you have to see is one step now. You don't have to see 10 steps ahead.
Yeah. True.
as as uh, as artists, we look for the ambiguous zone for the best composition.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and Anna, we've broken at least one myth. We've proved that men can talk. And 3 days we've had interesting sessions. And Mahesh, it's been a privilege hosting you. Thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you.
It's such an
Thank you.
honor, this, and I'm really, really honored because for us, conversations are sacred and they're sacred space. And I think thank you for honoring it. And
Thank you.
Mrinalini, Ananji, all the people who've
Thank
been
you.
with us. If there is anybody else, I do not know.
It is Chavi.
Chaviji, you know my conclusion after going through all the series and all the episodes. I think Mahesh and Mrinalini, Chaviji is a brilliant director, and this
Yeah,
we all were actors in this script.
yeah.
She just stayed behind the camera and let us act.
वो
And
सूट तो था, वो सूट निकाला ना, वो she held the thread and she extracted it.
Thank you so much. But see, there
so
are.
I think
I have
she has a wonderful career now to be a good filmmaker.
I've heard some, and this whole thing. Thank you so much to all the people here, because Mahesh, if you hadn't spoken so much and so openly about the corporate, there were many, many things there, and you said it, and you said it in a very, very honest way, maybe, and we've all learned so much. And Mrinalini, and to all of them, Jayant and Madhuri, and everybody here, DC and Parul, thank you so much for being here. And with this, we come to the end because it's 9:06, and I think the B Live also kind of they cut it off. So before they just cut us off,
Yeah.
thank you. And if there are any more, I
Thank
think
you.
Mahesh, Mahesh, you have to end with the last word
Oh,
to all of us.
I have no great words of wisdom. Thank you for having me here. Again, my definition of success may not be yours, and mine is simply be all you can be, and let your kids be all they can be, and just learn. You can't predict the future, so just be comfortable with it. Don't even go for it. Thrive in it by understanding you will not know anything about it. So, perfectly okay with ambiguity and be happy with it. Thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Venus.
so much.